Hello everyone. Today I'll talk about the important and popular essay by Robert Lynd entitled The Pleasures of Ignorance. In this short video, I'll talk about the biographical details of Robert Lynd, the characteristics of his writing, and also how this essay, presents very pleasant anecdotes and stories, and further, reveals that ignorance is not altogether bad, but it's a source of pleasure that leads to discovery of knowledge. And you know that getting new knowledge is always very pleasant, and it's always very good, and it starts from ignorance, and therefore there is a pleasure in ignorance. So the pleasures of ignorance we find in getting new knowledge, and it starts from ignorance. There are a couple of examples that Robert Lynd has given to illustrate this argument, or this hypothesis, and how he uh, explains, how he defines that that everyone must accept it, and you know um, continue to learn new things. I hope he will enjoy this. Robert Lynd was born in 1879 and died in 1949. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister, and he educated at Royal Belfast Academical Institution and later at Queen's University. So he was a very strong supporter of Irish nationalism, or rather, a very strong Irish nationalist who started his career as a journalist. He contributed essays and reviews in different newspapers and in different magazines. In 1901, moved to Manchester and then to London, and later he settled in Hampstead. He married the writer Sylvia Dryhurst, and Sylvia and Robert Lynd, they were very popular couple in the town, whose house was visited by several well-known contemporary writers such as J.B. Priestley, James Joyce, and many others. Lynd wrote drama reviews for Today and also for the Daily News, which later became the Daily Chronicle. He was also the literary editor from 1912 to 1947. He also regularly contributed essays and reviews to the New Statesman under the pseudonym YY. So here, his essays and reviews are published in the well-known contemporary newspapers and magazines, and mostly his essays deal with issues of contemporary ethos and interest. He wrote on the lives of working class people. Robert Lynd's literary contribution includes his essays like Old and New Masters, The Art of Letters, Dr. Johnson and Company, The Pleasures of Ignorance, and Blue Line, etc. So these are some of his popular and important essays, but in most of his essays, he has portrayed the daily lives of working people, or the lives of ordinary common class people. His writing, mostly known for his humor, satire, and irony. So he was considered the master of all these literary characteristics. His essays include very pleasant anecdotes and stories. So he has addressed very important issues of common class people through certain important anecdotes and stories, or he has illustrated it. And his essays have numerous wise observations on life, and they are presented in a very delightful literary and epigrammatic style. So he was quite known for his unique style of writing, and that very significant and important issues that he has addressed in his writings. Apparently, these issues seem very contradictory, but at deeper level, they are very true and they are very important in human life. So the present essay, The Pleasures of Ignorance, is not an exception to these characteristics. Apparently, it seems that, how one can say that there is a pleasure in ignorance. Generally, ignorance is considered bad, but here it is not altogether bad, but it is the source of pleasure, source of knowledge, because from ignorance, the learning process starts, and this learning is quite enjoyable or a very pleasurable journey, and therefore it's called the pleasure of ignorance. So a couple of other such important issues that Robert Lynd has addressed in his essays. The essay The Pleasures of Ignorance was first published in New Statesman and later in the collection of essays entitled the same, The Pleasures of Ignorance, in 1921. In this essay, Robert Lynd has asked a couple of important questions like how can ignorance also give us pleasure, or what do we get out of ignorance, what kind of pleasure does a naturalist enjoy, or what is the great or what is one of the greatest joys of man. So these are the important issues that Robert Lynd has addressed in his essays. And you know that the title of the essay, it aptly sums up the main thrust of this essay. Lynd argues that ignorance is not bad altogether, but it is the source, or it is a source of pleasure, because once you accept that you are quite ignorant and you ask the questions, then the learning process starts. So we start discovering new things or new knowledge, and therefore getting new knowledge or learning new things is an enjoyable process. So new knowledge makes our life richer. It is an enriching experience, and you know that it brings a lot of changes in our life. So the great pleasure of ignorance is, after all, the pleasure of asking questions. Once you accept that you are ignorant, you become curious, and then you ask questions. And you know that the moment you ask questions, you are curious to know the answers, and therefore the journey or the learning journey starts. So ignorance keeps our curiosity alive, and it motivates us to ask questions, and you know that get newer knowledge. And once you ask questions, automatically you go for answers, and these answers enrich our knowledge, it enrich our life. So the great pleasure in human life is in the voyage of discovery. So what we discovered is also significant, but in between, how our journey starts from ignorance to knowledge, it's a very enjoyable process. Therefore, it's a voyage of discovery, which is very pleasant, which is very surprising, and become an enriching experience for human beings. And therefore, Robert Lynd argues that the pleasures of ignorance. Apparently, the title of this essay, it seems very contradictory, because you know that generally ignorance is considered bad, or it has negative connotation. But here it is taken positively in the sense that you know it's a first step of learning new things, first stage of learning or acquiring new knowledge, and therefore it is important in each and every one's life, or once you accept it, your learning process starts. But the real or the main question is, are we aware of it? Are we ready to accept it, that we are ignorant about it? And then only it becomes fruitful or positive results. And this essay has illustrated this important issue uh, through couple of important examples that we find around us. You know, the distinction between the songs of cuckoos and thrushes, or reading of Plutarch or the reading of Arabian Nights, uh, different kinds of flowers, different kinds of fruits, plants. Such kind of common examples have been taken, and this issue has been illustrated by Robert Lynd. Even that the example of Socrates is given at the end of the AC. Though Socrates was one of the famous and very popular thinkers, but he accepted his ignorance, and therefore he known for his wisdom. So couple of other such well-known thinkers, people that Robert Lynd has referred in his essay, which emphasize on the human limitations and the notion of accepting your ignorance, and then only the whole journey is open for us, or the exploration of knowledge is open for us. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you would have enjoyed it. Have a great time. Thank you.